So good news. Tango Gameworks is saved. So for those who don't know, Tango Gameworks was a company, was a developer that developed games like The Evil Within, Evil Within 2, and Ghostwire Tokyo, but more notably delivered honestly Xbox's best game last year in Hi-Fi Rush. And unfortunately, a year after releasing Hi-Fi Rush, they were shut down by Microsoft. They were originally part of Bethesda, and when Bethesda was acquired by Microsoft, they became part of Microsoft Studios. But after releasing their critical hit, Hi-Fi Rush, only a year later they were shut down. And it was it was horrible news because Tango Gameworks, with a bunch of gifted developers that made a really good game in Hi-Fi Rush, but we don't know. Maybe it just didn't monetarily do that well. It was on Game Pass day one, and it was shadow dropped. But Microsoft decided, hey, they're shutting them down. And honestly, I thought that's it for Tango GameWorks. That we're not going to see a Hi-Fi Rush 2 or anything else, and Tango GameWorks is completely done as a studio. But then yesterday, it was announced that Tango Gameworks was acquired by Krafton, the studio behind the Callisto Protocol and, more notably, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. And they announced that they acquired Tango Gameworks and that they also got the IP for Hi-Fi Rush, which means that they plan on kind of making Hi-Fi Rush this bigger and bigger IP. But for Tango Gameworks' previous franchises like The Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo, apparently they're still at Microsoft and Bethesda, so we're probably not going to see much from those IPs because they're with Bethesda and Microsoft, and Tango's no longer with Bethesda and Microsoft anymore. But it's great that Tango Gameworks was saved and they are able to make they're still able to make new games, and they also got the IP for Hi-Fi Rush. That was a lot of people's favorite game from last year, and it honestly was Xbox's best game in probably this generation, and I don't for a while now. Hi-Fi Rush was a great game that almost everyone seemed to love, but then they were unfortunately shut down. But they were saved, and hopefully they're able to do much bigger things now when they're no longer part of that kind of, even though Microsoft is a big company, and Bethesda's also big, it seemed like Microsoft didn't know what to do with them, so they just shut them down. I'm glad that they were able to be brought back, and their company was saved. Now, honestly, as much as bad publicity Microsoft's been getting, as much of crap that everyone has been giving them, I would say it is good on them that instead of just completely shutting them down and refusing to giving them up, they managed to agree to sell them. I would say that's really good, and I wish more publishers did that when it comes to studios. I wish that instead of just shutting them down, they just sold them off. Do you know how great it would be if a lot of your favorite developers, instead of getting shut down, they were just sold off to a different publisher? I know we saw that with the Embracer Group. They sold off, I remember Gearbox to Take-Two instead of just shutting them down, which is great. And it's also great that Microsoft did the same thing with Tango, and hopefully this just allows more other companies, let's say Sony or a bunch of other publishers, to instead of just shutting down their studios who make these great and fantastic games, they just sell them off. It saves the people's jobs from from losing their jobs and having to go and find new ones, and they make some money out of it. They're still selling the studio to a different publisher, and it's just great to see. Because like I said, Hi-Fi Rush was a critical darling last year. Everyone seemed to really like that game, and for all that just to close down the studio was kind of sad. Well, yeah, it was really sad to see. And I remember when Tango was shut down, everyone was upset from Microsoft because they're why would you shut down this great studio? And honestly, I still think they deserve still some crap for just shutting them down or trying to shut them down. But I will say at least they sold them off. I kind of wish this also happened to Arcane Austin. I wish they kind of also sold them off. Maybe, sure, they couldn't be called Arcane Austin because the main Arcane studio is still owned by Bethesda, but like sold off the team and just have them like renamed under someone else, something else under a new publisher. Because yeah, say what you want about Redfall, but Arcane Austin's previous game, Prey, I know a lot of people really like that game. So it's a shame that they got shut down also. And let's be honest, apparently they didn't even really want to make Hi-Fi. I mean, not Hi-Fi Rush. That's Tango, and Hi-Fi Rush is a great game. But Arcane Austin didn't really want to make Redfall. Apparently it was mostly like kind of forced on them by Bethesda higher ups at ZeniMax, and that they were like, "Hey, we need you to make a games as a service game," and apparently they didn't want to make it, and it sucks that they're getting punished for that, and they got shut down. I wish they were also sold off to someone else, so that they can continue making great games. But you know what? I'm glad Tango Gameworks was saved because they were probably the best studio that, like, the best studio that was unfortunately shut down by Microsoft. It's good that they were saved and that we can see more from them and more Hi-Fi Rush games. But that's all about I have for today. I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.